Alright guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today. For this one, we are going to do another out and about video for you. So today, I'm still in Connecticut. This time we are in Norwalk, which is a little bit further down the coast toward New York. And we're going to have a little look at this place behind me, which is Spacecat Brewing. Now, this one's actually very close to Josh's work. He's never actually been in here, but he has tried some of the beer and knows that it's very good. So we're going to go in, we'll do as we always do, we'll have a little look around, we'll try some of the beers, we might get a wee thing to eat or something like that, we'll just see how it goes, and hopefully we'll have a good time. We'll see if Josh wants to join in on one or two of the tastings as well, but let's get started on this one. Definitely cool to check out another Connecticut brewery. So yeah, Spacecat Brewing in Norwalk. Let's get started. Alright guys, so let's just have a little walk around here and see what there is. So this is Spacecat Brewing right in front of me, and you can see that it's pretty much just in the middle of a kind of residential area here in Norwalk. It looks like it's an old kind of factory building of some sort, and it's a really nice venue inside actually. They've got a food truck outside today that's doing pizza and various other things, the JGB wood fire. But yeah, so there you go, there's the Spacecat Brewing Company symbol. And yeah, you come in here, you can see a little bit of their malt store and stuff just over here, but the brewing takes place right behind the bar, which is kind of cool. So yeah, it's a really nice space actually, this one, and I think it's one of the more interesting kind of layouts of a brewery that I've seen. So yeah, you can see the brewery employees actually just sit over here, just on top of everything. You can see them just going up there, and there you've got all the brew kit here, which is quite nice. And if you come out this way, you have a little terrace, a little kind of beer garden sort of thing, and there's a few tanks just sitting up there waiting to go in. And you've got this kind of hook game again that seems to be really popular in the US. Not figured out why this is so popular, but yeah, really nice little setup that they've got here. So yeah, J-Man is sitting over here, and yeah, as you can see, the first beer has gone, so I think it's time to get beer number 2, but you'll be seeing beer number 1 in a second. This one was the Pilsner, so yeah, stay tuned for that review in just a second. Alright guys, well, time for our first tasting then here at Spacecat Brewery in Norwalk. I'm having to wear my sunglasses because the sun is coming right through the window that's right next to me, so that's why I look a little bit like a poser in this particular tasting. But yeah, the first beer that we're going to have a look at is a style that I very much enjoy, and one that is always a very good place to start with when we're making these videos. So this beer is called Whistleville Pils. It comes in at 5% ABV, and I think from the name you know what style this one is, but we should say that specifically it is meant to be a German style Pilsner. So remember, the Pilsner as a style originates in the Czech city of Pilsen, which at the time when the beer was developed in the 1840s was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. There was Czechs and Germans living there. The beer was developed by a Bavarian brewer who moved over there. He was a bit of an arsehole, so he was kicked out of the city 2 years later, and that Pilsner became Pilsner Urquell, or Boženský Kváškoj as it's also known. For me, the Czech Pilsners are a little bit more kind of creamy in their mouthfeel, but also a little bit more kind of spicy in their hoppy character, whereas the German Pilsners are a little bit cleaner in their mouthfeel, but also a little bit more kind of dry and crisp in their malty character. So yeah, we'll see how this one rates in terms of authenticity, because what I want from these beers is authenticity. But you can see that, as you would expect, this one has poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. When it poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. That has faded away to be a nice kind of thinner foamy layer, and we've got a ring just around the edge of the glass. There are a few little foamy bits just sitting on top of the glass there. But yeah, it looks nice. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on the type of malts that you use. For the most part, that goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of your beer too. So yeah, that's something you need to think about with these beers. But when it comes to Pilsners, you don't really need to care about adjuncts or you don't need to care about adjuncts or barrel aging for the most part. But yeah, it's a lager beer, so remember, lower temperature fermentation using bottom fermenting yeast. They usually take about 30 days to 45 days, or even longer actually, to ferment this particular style of beer. But let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, aroma-wise, this beer, I'm going to say the aroma doesn't jump out of the glass at you in this case. It is quite mild-mannered in a sense, and yeah, we'll need to see if we get more of it out of the actual aroma, but yeah, or the actual flavour I should say, but aroma-wise this beer is pretty kind of straightforward. So the backbone of the beer, you've got a lovely little bit of a fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little tiny hint of woodiness in there and a little bit of kind of crackery character as well. But for the most part, I'm trying not to shoot with this beer too much because I'll spill it. For the most part, this beer has a little bit of kind of like fluffy white bready character to it. The Pilsner malt in this one doesn't come across as being overly dry in the aroma actually, so that's quite interesting. Yeah, aroma-wise, that's an interesting point to make about this one for sure. Yeah. So on top of the kind of white bready character that you get in here, you get a little bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, graham cracker maybe, a little bit like cookie or something like that for the Americans watching this video. And as I say, it doesn't come across as being overly dry and crisp in its aroma. It actually comes across, pardon me, as being a little bit wetter, but that could be down to the malt bill, the hops maybe as well in this one, but it does say that it contains noble German hops, so I don't think it'll be that. But yeah, maybe water profile is what's making this one smell a little bit wetter. On the hoppy side of things, this beer is kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of earthiness in there, but a very smooth earthiness, also that little bit of herbal character as well. You've got a really nice bit of kind of bright floral aromaticity, which is distinctive of German noble hops. Bit of a wet grassiness too. And yeah, that points to authenticity. As I say, this beer to me, if I was smelling it blind, I'd probably think it was a Helles rather than a Pilsner, to be honest with you. But yeah, in terms of the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of like, there's definitely a wee touch of, say, kind of sultana with this one, you know, white raisins, oily pear for sure. Little touch of gooseberry and maybe a wee bit of fresh green apple, all things that you would expect from German noble hops. When they say noble hops, it is most likely to be Hallertau Mittelfrüh, or perhaps one of the slightly stronger ones like Pearl. We'll need to see, we can maybe tell that when we actually taste the beer. But aroma-wise, as I say, it's very, very mild-mannered, smells a little bit more like a Helles, but very authentically German, I would say, to be honest with you, apart from the fact it just smells that little bit wetter. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. We've got the Whistleville Pils, a German-style Pilsner at 5% ABV. Our first beer here at Spacecat. Slange, Skål. Oh yeah, nice lager beer, this one for sure. It shows you a little bit more of the Pilsner characteristics in the aftertaste. It takes a little bit of time to show you that, but definitely quite a smooth and quite a wet Pilsner, but the bitterness and the dryness and crispness that you expect of this style comes out a little bit later on for sure. But yeah, that is pretty damn good, so it gets a thumbs up for me, I'll say that. Let's break it down then and describe it a little bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you do get a little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust. It's got a little bit of graininess and a little bit of dryness in it there, so yeah, definitely a little bit of that. Definitely a little bit of that just kind of sitting on top of the sitting on the base of your tongue, basically. As you move a little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, there's a wee touch of woodiness in there. Yeah, definite little touch of woodiness. There's some crackery character in there. Then on top of that, I'd say you get a little touch of like brown bread, like sweeter brown bread. Then you've got the fluffier white bready character sitting on top of that as well, which is nice. As I say, the more that you drink of this beer, the more Pilsner-like it feels. As I say, like when it started off in there with the aroma, to me it struck me as being more of like a Helles, but yeah, it does become more Pilsner-like as time goes on. So above the white bready layer, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you've got a little touch of like you do have a little touch of like a Pilsner malty type crispness in there. So yeah, a little bit of Pilsner malty crispness. As you move further forward, you definitely get a little bit of a more biscuity note out of this one. In the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a little, yeah, you definitely get a little bit of a more kind of concentrated sort of biscuity flavour in the middle of your palate there, which is nice. And that is, of course, the alcohol. Remember, the alcohol does make a significant part of the flavour in the beer. Then as you move further out from that, you've got a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit there, more like a kind of crisp biscuity note. I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. The back third of the palate in this one, and remember the back third of your palate tends to give you similar flavours to the middle third, just at different intensities. You've got the same bread crust in there, just a little bit drier, the same crackery layer, again just a little bit drier. The brown bready character's a little bit taller, lighter and more airy, but still a touch sweet. The white bread is in there, definitely a little bit drier and lighter and more airy. Then some of the kind of biscuity characters just creep over the top of there. You've got this nice kind of drier biscuity note coming out of this one. And then yeah, above that you get the yeast. The yeasty character for me in this beer is quite sort of, it's like a really dense, sweet brown bread. A little bit of like honeycomb or something like that around it, and definitely you can feel back third of your palate. The flavour is taller. As you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. And then yeah, I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer. So let's have a little look at the hoppy side of things. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you get a little touch of herbal character, very smooth of course, typical of German noble hops. And as you move further forward, you get a little bit more floral aromaticity, wee touch of spiciness to it, not too much. Then round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, wee bit zesty, but still quite bright, again characteristic of German hops. Let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then. So yeah, for me, front third of your palate, it's got a good little bit of, there's a good little bit of like bread crust and white bread underneath, wee bit of cracker, then you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out the beer. And it's kind of what I expected it would be from the aroma. You've got this little bit of kind of sultana type note at the back. As you come further forward, you get a wee bit of oily pear, quite a lot of fresh green apple in this one incidentally, which I find quite interesting. And into the aftertaste, on the front half of that front third of your tongue, just a teeny little hint of gooseberry. But yeah, definitely this beer becomes more Pilsner-like the more that you drink of it. And I think at this point we should move to the mouthfeel to round it off. So as I said, this beer for me, it's got the type of flavour you expect of a Pilsner, but the mouthfeel is the thing that maybe kind of lets it down slightly in a sense, because it's very, very wet and quite oily. A Pilsner should be, whether it's Czech or German, should be a little bit crisp and a little bit more bitter than this. So yeah, it kind of does push into the slightly more Helles type category, this one I would say as well, but it's still a very nice beer. We can talk about styles all day. The question is it a nice beer? And the answer is yes. So it does, as I say, it shows you more Pilsner character the more that you drink of it. But yeah, it's quite wet. I'd say this one is kind of mid-range in the light body part of the spectrum. Little touch oily, a little bit wet. As I say, the IBU in this one is maybe about 20-ish IBU. For a Pilsner, it usually is about 30. The beer needs just that little bit more bitterness to it. The malt base, as we said, a little bit of dryness underneath, a little bit of smoothness in the middle, and a wee touch of sweetness on top in the malt base. And the fruits are definitely what you would expect from the style. And especially the thing with this one, if it's going to be a German Pilsner, it just needs that little touch more kind of dryness from the Pilsner malt as well. Because yeah, it does have a bit more of a Helles character to it, this one, in my opinion. But still, very, very nice beer, and I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Whistleville Pils, German-style Pilsner at 5% ABV. Let's leave it at that for this one, and we'll see what else we've got coming up in just a second. Catch you then. Alright guys, so a little quick look at the tap list for you here at Spacecat Brewing today. This is kind of one of the weird things. They didn't actually have like a big board behind the bar which told you all the different beers and things. They've got all the paper menus around the place. So yeah, it's the first time I've encountered that over here. But yeah, the beers that they have here, they have the Orion, which is a New England IPA at 6.6% ABV. Tree Cat, West Coast IPA at 7.3. They have one of their Cosmic Candy beers on tap. This is the Pineapple Guava version. I think, oh, they've got two of them, I think, by the looks of it. The two different versions there, I'm telling you lies. Then they've got the Whistleville Pils. These are all their kind of year-round beers. You can see you can get a flight here for $14, so that's about 12 or 13 euros, maybe about £11 sterling, something like that. But yeah, you can see a happy hour in there as well. You can get different 4-packs as well. And then over here they have some limited and seasonal beers. So yeah, you have the Snosberry, which is a strawberry wheat, the Sundial, a session IPA at 4.9% ABV, the Orion's Belt, and New England at 5.5, which is still kind of sessionable. And then over here, the seasonals, they have the Summer Kulsch at 5.5%, which is a little bit strong for a Kulsch actually when I think about it. But yeah, they've also got the Schwarzbier, which is 5.6% ABV, and I've not seen too many of those, so I think we will need to try that one actually. But yeah, that is a little quick look at the tap list here today at Spacecat Brewing, and we're here incidentally on the 13th of September 2023, just for reference. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 2 then here at Spacecat. So I was actually just going to get a half pint of this one, but apparently it's happy hour, so the pints are cheaper than the half pints, if that makes sense for you. So $5 for a pint of IPA, I'm not going to complain. But yeah, for this review then, for the second one, we are going to have a little look at Orion, which comes in at 6.6% ABV, and as you can see, it's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So this one is hopped with Strata, Mosaic and Simcoe, all hops that we know fairly well, all three of them American. Strata about 16% alpha acid, it's going to give you a bit of melon and a bit of kind of juicy strawberry, whereas Mosaic is 14% alpha acid, big juicy tangerine notes, sometimes a little bit of pineapple, and then Simcoe is a little bit older than the other two, 12% alpha acid, and it gives you a lovely soft kind of passion fruity note. But yeah, as you can see, this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from a New England IPA. When it came out, it poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would have said cream coloured head. It looked very nice. That has faded away, and it's just giving you that thicker ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, the way it goes together is quite nice, this one. As you can see, it's kind of like a slightly peach juice type colour, this one. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. But yeah, it does look pretty much as you would expect for the style. So remember, the level of haze in these New England IPAs depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. It can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, you can see that this one is pretty damn opaque. The level of haziness in this beer is actually pretty impressive when you consider that it's only 6.6% ABV. So yeah, we'll need to see what this one has in store for us from that side of things. But yeah, lovely kind of peach juice or mixed tropical fruit juice colour, I think we could say. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation, but still it looks very, very nice. So on the aroma then, I think we said everything we need to about the appearance. Let's have a wee look at that. I have to say, I do like the music that's on just now, a little bit of Nirvana, you can't beat it. So yeah. aroma-wise, this one smells absolutely lovely. So as I've said in many reviews before, there are 6 different ways the malty and yeasty side of a New England IPA can lean. They can be a little bit more sort of rye leaning and grainy. They can be a little bit more farmhousey and yeasty. That's a little bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but then you've also got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. And those elements are kind of more along the lines of how the European New England IPAs have evolved over time. For me, this strikes me as being a very oat-leaning New England IPA. It comes across as very kind of creamy, but you've also got a good little bit of wheat in this one as well, which is quite interesting. And it does smell pretty sweet too. So the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, on top of the fresh white bready bread crust, you have a little bit of a kind of woody character in there, some nice little bit of cracker too, but mainly this one has a lot of bready character to it at the same time. And you can smell the wheat kind of densifying that out. So yeah, little touch of sweet brown bread in there, some sweeter white bread as well, but definitely in the back of the nose you get a little touch of wheaty bitiness. But as I've said in many reviews before on this kind of series of reviews that I've been doing, the American wheat tends to be quite a bit smoother, I think, than the European wheat, and so you can smell that wheaty character in there, but it just comes across as being a lot smoother. So on the you definitely get a little bit of that wheaty character out of here, and there's a lot of nice kind of creamy oatiness in this beer as well. You get a nice big sort of you do get a nice sort of big sweet creaminess coming out of the beer. And so yeah, lovely big kind of sweet oaty creaminess coming out of this one. There's a little bit of like Werther's original butter candy butterscotch coming out of it, but in the malty side of the aroma here, it kind of reminds me a little bit of this sweet that we have back home in the motherland called Parma Violets. It just has this like sort of almost red fruity sort of sherbety character to it, and that's a product of the yeast. You find this with certain yeasts that you can use. It just gives you this sort of candy sherbety type note in the malt base, and that's really evident here, but lovely kind of Werther's original butter candy butterscotchy sort of note in here as well. And I think, to be honest, that covers what we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. On the hoppy side of things then, the green component is kind of as you would expect. So remember, with IPAs there are 3 kinds of hoppings that you can do. Early addition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil, that's responsible for mainly bitterness and it gives you a deep dank aroma. Late addition hopping in the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly flavour and aroma but a little bit of bitterness, and that'll give you a brighter green component. Dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, is all about flavour and aroma, and that gives you mainly, it gives you pretty much all flavour and aroma, but it's going to give you a bright green component again, and that's quite evident here. New England IPAs rely on mainly late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they're deeper and danker. On the green component of this one, for me, there's a little teeny bit of earthiness in there, which is going to be the mosaic. You've got a lovely little bit of kind of oily floral aromaticity coming out of this beer, which is great. It's not too spicy either, but I get a lot of kind of wet, leafy sort of grassiness on the green component with this beer too, which is nice. The fruity character in this beer is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. It's not doing anything kind of unusual. I do wonder if the sort of candy-ish note you get out of this is because of the strata. I've noticed that with strata beers actually. But yeah, for me, there's a really nice kind of juicy, soft passion fruit and mango coming out of this one. That's going to be your Simcoe that's giving you that. There's a wee bit of that melony note as well, kind of melon and gooseberry. That's the strata. And there's also a wee bit of the juicy strawberry. And of course, for me, the most prominent note in the fruity side of this beer is actually the tangerine orange from the mosaic. So yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one, I have to say. Lovely smelling beer, and I'm just very curious to see how it tastes. So let's have a taste of this one, see what it's all about. This is the Orion, a 6.6% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA, our second beer here at Spacecat Brewing Company. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. quite nice. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. We've got a wee special beer to have a little look at later. So yeah, on the lost my train of thought there. Yeah, for me, this New England IPA is actually a bit more wheaty and barley malt leaning in terms of the kind of composition of the malt base, but it's really quite nice. It's, for 6.6% ABV, it's really quite drinkable actually. But yeah, I like this one. So, I'm getting the feeling that from the Pilsner before, maybe this kind of wetness in the mouthfeel is just due to the water profile here, because it's quite a wet feeling New England IPA. This one has all the flavour you'd expect and it's well done, but it just feels that little bit wetter. So that could explain why I thought the Pilsner needed just a bit more crispness. So there's a lovely little bit of a, if we go to the middle third of the palate, lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in here. Further forward on that middle third of the palate, a little bit of woodiness, wee bit of Jacob's cream cracker. And then on top of that, there's a kind of oily, there's a sort of oily, kind of sweet wholemeal brown bready character there. Above that you get the fluffier white bread, then you can feel the more dense wheaty character coming out of this one. And yeah, I think that covers mainly the middle third of your palate. You can feel a little bit of the oaty character sitting on top of that. If you go down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the kind of more dense oaty notes, and it gets a little bit drier the further out toward the edges of your palate you go. And with a New England IPA, usually when you get dryness in the oats, it's a signal that the beer is a little bit older, but we know this one is very fresh because we're drinking it on tap. So again, maybe this is a slight different with American oats, that they're a bit drier than European oats, I don't know. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you get a little concentration there of that Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and you've also got that little bit of the kind of sherbet Parma Violet type flavour that I was talking about too. I think that covers the middle third of the palate, to be honest, with this one. So yeah, I'm surprised that this one, it's actually more barley malt and wheaty leaning just from the flavour, so the aroma diverges a wee bit from the flavour that you get in this beer, to be honest. So yeah, I like that about this beer. On the back third of the palate then, you've still got the bread crust in the base, you've got the sweet kind of wholemeal brown bready character sitting on top of that, and that of course, the bread crusty character is a bit drier, the cracker's there, the wholemeal brown bready character feels a little bit lighter and more airy, then you've got the white bready character above that, and you can feel the wheat just creeping over the top, and it's a bit more bitey. Actually, just a little touch kind of spicy. So yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. Above everything else on that back third of the palate, you've got a more dense kind of wheaty type character in there. A more the yeasty character, sorry, not the wheaty character. So the yeast in this beer, it's really quite. It's actually very, it's like a dense, sweet white bready character. It's got a little bit of an almost kind of black peppery sort of thing around it. And yeah, I think definitely back third of the palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the green component is as you'd expect. There's a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, it gives you a little bit more floral aromaticity. It's got a wee bit of spiciness to it, but it's actually quite an oily green component, so it wouldn't surprise me if they were using a little bit of incognito or cryo or something like that in here. Round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, a little touch more oily, of course, wee bit of zestiness in there, and then the front third of your palate is where the fruit is coming out. So yeah, for me, the front third of your palate, the bread crust is there, the white bread, then you get that nice oily bubble with the juicy fruity notes, and again, the fruits are kind of what you would expect from this hop combination. So yeah, at the back of this, the front third of your palate, a bit of a stronger passion fruit. That mellows out to a lovely kind of juicy mango toward the middle of the front third of your palate. There's a bit of melon underneath there. So it's mainly the Simcoe at the back. You've got the melon from the strata in there, and as you move further forward, it's really giving you the melon and kind of gooseberry note spreads forward into the base of that front half of the front third of your tongue. There's a bit of the juicy strawberry in there as well, but then the kind of tangerine orange from the mosaic sits on top of that. But I think the strata, as it often does, kind of dominates in this beer a little bit. You get a lot of the melon, gooseberry and strawberry from that strata coming out. I don't know if it's a 33 ratio mixture, maybe it's 50 strata, 25 Simcoe and mosaic, but certainly for me the strata is a bit more prominent in the flavour, I think we can say. Yeah, mouthfeel wise then, to round this one off, so for me, mouthfeel, this beer is, I'd say it's kind of mid-bodied, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation is very, very smooth. As I said earlier, it's got quite a wet mouthfeel, and I'm thinking that that's probably just the water profile of this local area. But quite a wet mouthfeel, mid-bodied, carbonation smooth. In terms of the IBU in this beer, I think it's a fairly standard 30 IBU, which is normal for this style. The malt, as we said, it's a bit of graininess underneath, smoothness in the middle, and you know, it's kind of smooth again on top. This is really not a sweet New England IPA. Some of them can be very sweet, but you do get a little bit of that sherbety flavour into the aftertaste. Then you've just got a nice kind of juicy, fruity character to this one. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this beer. So an interesting one. This is one of their core range beers we've been trying. Well, the other one was one of their core range beers as well, and we're about to try another in a second. But yeah, I've enjoyed this one. Slightly different New England IPA compared to others that I've had in the US on this trip. So let's leave it there. This was the Orion, a 6.6% New England IPA, our second beer here at Spacecat Brewing. I'll catch you guys in a second with something else. So yeah guys, another thing, as I've often mentioned in these videos about American breweries, is that you do happen to have quite a lot of merchandise in these places. Over here you can get your animal treats if you've got a dog or a cat at home. A little collaboration they have with Animal Earth. But here you have different t-shirts and stuff. There you can see the sort of NASA style mock-up of Spacecat Brewing Company. Here they've got the Norwalk thing. You can also get your hoodies. They've got several different colours of these, you know, black ones, that's a slightly different design in there. They've got some grey ones along here as well with the orange writing. Then you've also got some hats down here, some baseball caps, because you know it's America. Then you've got Mr. Butter's biscuits as well actually, and yeah, some homebrewing kits that you can buy if you really want to. But yeah, just a small selection of merchandise here at Spacecat Brewing. So there you are, another little quick thing for you. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 3 then here at Spacecat Brewing Company. So yeah, the third beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy, and it's also one that has enjoyed a little bit of a resurgence in popularity recently, but this was a very, very popular style when I was kind of first getting into craft beer back in sort of, you know, 2012, 2013 sort of time. So yeah, definitely cool to find one of these on tap here at this brewery. So this particular beer is called the Tree Cat. It comes in at 7.3% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So this one is hopped with Comet, Chinook and Centennial, sea hops. Comet is one that you see every so often. It's not used very much in Europe, but you see it every so often in American IPAs. It's about 12% alpha acid, if I remember correctly. It gives you this big, oily, pineapple-y type character, and it's also known for being quite floral and spicy as well. Chinook, we know quite well. That's a big kind of 14% alpha acid hop, lots of grapefruit, very piney and resinous, that one. And then the Centennial's about 12% alpha acid, and that is going to give you a kind of more lemony, citrusy, zesty sort of thing actually. So some proper old school hops in this one. I'm curious to see how this beer actually turns out. But when the beer poured, you could see that it came out with, it actually came out with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, kind of ivory, fawn-coloured head. But that has, of course, faded away to be a thinner foamy layer now, and you've got that ring just around the edge of the glass there. Some medium bubbles sitting on the top of the liquid there, but it did get more foamy the further up you went. But you can see the colour of this beer is lovely and rich and amber. And as I've said in many reviews before, when it comes to the West Coast IPAs, I believe these beers can go two ways. They can be more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Russian River Pliny the Elder, or they can be a little bit more kind of oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. And by the looks of the colour on this one, which as you can see is a more kind of rich amber sort of colour, I think this one is going to be more along the lines of a Sierra Nevada Torpedo, and I haven't had a big sort of caramelly West Coast IPA in quite some time, so when I saw this one getting poured, I was pretty excited just by the colour of it. So let's have a little look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. There's not too much carbonation visible, it is pretty clear, and beyond that I don't think we really need to say anything about the appearance of this beer. So let's have a wee look at that aroma. Oh yeah. Aroma wise, that's absolutely lovely. Yeah, and again, I got a pint of this because it was cheaper to get the pint than the half pint, so I think Josh and I are going to go home pretty kind of smashed, to be honest with you. But that happens sometimes when you're filming these videos. So yeah, for me, the aroma of this is absolutely lovely. Proper old school. It's a kind of big, it's a bit of a nostalgic throwback to me, for me I should say. My brain doesn't work in English these days. So yeah, the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely, fresh, kind of brown bready, wholemeal bread crust. There is a little touch of like woodiness in there, but again, that's very minimal. Very sweet, wholemeal brown bread. On top of that, there's a little touch of a smoother white bread. But then, yeah, you've got all the kind of caramelly notes coming out of this one. There's a slightly toasty brown sugary note to it. Then you've got the big, oily, sweet caramel. So this is probably using, by the smell of it, it's probably using quite a few varieties of American two-row malts. The popular malt for these kind of beers in Europe would be the German Crystal, but there's just a distinctive difference. The American two rows just give you this more distinct oily sweetness, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a few varieties of that in here just from the aroma. This is just something I've picked up over the years. You can really smell the difference between American and German malt. So it's that big sweet oily caramel that's in there. There is a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity note as well. Aroma wise, this is absolutely lovely. Yeah. It gives you everything you'd want from a West Coast IPA, and as I say, I was just so excited when I saw the colour of this one, because I've had so many bready, biscuity leaning West Coast IPAs. I just want one that's a bit more kind of caramelly leaning. One of the tricks that they used to do with these beers actually was to put a little bit of like grape sugar into these beers as well, so I'd be curious to know if there is a little bit of grape sugar adjunct in this one, because it was particularly potent with the West Coast IPAs that were that bit more kind of caramelly leaning. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's have a little look at that. The green component is as you would expect. You've got a little touch of earthiness in there, a little bit of herbal character, but it's mainly, if you take the aroma in with this one, you've actually got a lot of deep, kind of dank, piney resinous character. But I will say straight away that this one doesn't smell as if it's going to be overly bitter. Because many new drinkers have entered into craft beer with the New England haze craze, which has lower IBU, a number of West Coast IPAs have been kind of dialed back a little bit in terms of their bitterness, and I wonder if that's going to be the case with this one, because you don't have such a big kind of spicy floral note or a big deep dank piney resiny note. You can smell the green component in there, but it is a little bit brighter, which, as I said earlier, it's usually an indicator of late edition and dry hopping rather than early edition hopping. But we might see a difference there in the actual flavour. We'll just need to see, because if you do take the aroma in quite deeply, like, you get more of it. But yeah, definitely an oily kind of grassy character coming out of this one, a little bit of citrusy zest, and yeah, the grassy character you get out of this is absolutely lovely. I love that citrusy zesty type note that comes out here. Yeah, on the fruity side of things then, for me, you've got a lovely kind of big oily character out of this one. There's definitely a little hint of that grapefruity note in there. There's an oily passion fruit as well. Oily pineapple, which is going to be the Comet. The grapefruit's going to come from the Chinook. And you do get that more kind of lemony, limey, citrusy type note from the Centennial. I do actually get quite a little bit of orange out of this too. If I was smelling this one blind without knowing the hops, I would guess that there was Amarillo in there, because it has quite a bit of an oily orange zest. But it smells lovely. I think at this point, we've spoken enough and smelled the beer enough, we should have a taste of it and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Tree Cat, a West Coast IPA, 7.3% ABV. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, Jesus. That is a real throwback to the good old days of West Coast IPA. The beers that I've had so far have been nice, they've been good, but this one just strikes a chord with me that little bit more because it's a little bit of a nostalgia burst. That's lovely, that is really good. And to be honest, this was the other thing I was noticing about the beers here, was that they felt a little bit more wet and oily. That suits this kind of beer, it suits the West Coast IPA. So this is really nice. This is probably the best beer out of the three that I've tried so far. So yeah, this gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, this Tree Cat IPA, 7.3% ABV, it's good. Not just because it's higher in alcohol, it's pretty damn good, and it gives you do have that little hit of bitterness in there which you want from this style. So let's break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of your palate, you've got a big, deep kind of pine resiny character to this one. It gives you a lot more kind of floral, spicy character in there, which is interesting. So yeah, this one, as I say, it does have that big, deep kind of pine resiny note to it, which is great. But yeah, we usually start with the malt base in this one. I got a bit ahead of myself there. So yeah, if you go to that middle third of your palate, you've got that lovely kind of brown bready, bread crusty backbone in there, which is great. As you move further forward in there, there's a little touch of woodiness. Then you've got the sweeter wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of wholemeal, sweet brown bready character in there. Above that, you get the white bread, and then you've got this oily brown sugary note. There is a little bit of a kind of more crispy, slightly toasty brown sugary character sitting above the white bread, which is really nice too. And then yeah, you get the more oily, boozy caramel above that. You've got like a little circle in the middle of your palate there, which has the kind of sweeter, oily, caramelly note coming out of the beer. So yeah, above the kind of toasty brown sugary layer, in the dead centre of your palate, you've got quite a concentrated sweet caramel. Then underneath that, you've got a layer of toasty caramel. As I said, you've got a wee bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity note coming out of this one. Definitely American two-row malt in here. But yeah, that covers the malt base. The brown bread, bread crust, the bit of woodiness, the sweet brown bread, the white bread, the kind of toasty brown sugar, the oily brown sugar as well. And then, yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. That covers the middle third of your palate. The back third of your palate is kind of similar, but the bread crust is a little bit drier. You do have a little touch of a crackery layer in there. The brown bready layer is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then the white bready layer above that's a bit lighter and more airy. And then, yeah, above all of that, you can feel a bit of the drier, biscuity and more toasty brown sugary character just creeping over the top of that, which is really nice. So yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. And above everything else, you've got the yeasty character out of the beer. So you've got this really dense, sweet, brown bready, yeasty character coming out of the beer. So the centre of the yeast is like a really dense, sweet, brown bready kind of ball in there. Then you've got this kind of almost like black peppery character to it, a little bit of woodiness in there as well, and then it's just wrapped in this kind of honeycomb. But definitely back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, and it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. As we mentioned earlier, pardon me, in the back corners of the palate you've got that little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little bit of herbal character, and the more that you drink of this beer, the more that you get of that very deep, dank, pine resin-y character coming out of it. So you can feel that. That's the Chinook that's giving you that. And as you reach the very front tip of your tongue, the front corners of your palate, it's got a real sort of spicy, floral aromatic note to it, which is great. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is it's really very nice. Lovely kind of big, deep dank pine resin, spicy floral aromaticity, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. There's a little bit of zestiness in there. And yeah, the green component in this one. I'm glad that this West Coast IPA does show you the bitterness, because a lot of breweries kind of forget that about this style these days. But this is proper old school, which is nice. But yeah, let's have a look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the brown bready bread crust in there, the sweeter brown bread, I would say, and then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me is kind of what you'd expect from these hops, to be honest with you. At the back of that front third of your palate, there's a big strong grapefruity note coming out of it. As you move further forward, you can feel it's got a big oily kind of passion fruity note. You do get that kind of more oily mango-y character in there. Then as you push further forward, you get the oily pineapple in the dead centre of that front third of your tongue, and then in the front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about the Centennial. It's that big oily, yeah, it's that big sort of oily, lemony, limey character. As I say, that goes together really well. Gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, proper old school West Coast IPA, this one, and that's what really strikes a chord with me. It's got that slightly more caramelly leaning character to it, and it's got that deep dank bitterness, which I love about this style. What I really miss, to be honest with you. This is a real nostalgia hit for me. To round off this one then, a little look at the mouthfeel. So for me, the mouthfeel of this beer, as I say, it really suits the water profile in this case. It's got this lovely kind of top end to mid body. It leans toward the top end of the mid body part of the spectrum. Carbonation is very smooth, a kind of slick, oily type mouthfeel to it. In terms of the IBUs, I think this is a sort of 80-90 IBU beer. It really gets more and more bitter the more that you drink of it. The malt base is a bit grainy underneath, smooth in the middle, oily and sweet on top, and then you've got that lovely big oily sweet character of this one, which is quite well balanced between the more tropical side of things, but it really leans a bit more toward the citrusy end of the spectrum. Lovely beer this, and very, very happy with it. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Tree Cat, a 7.3% West Coast IPA, our third beer here at Spacecat Brewing Company, and we'll go in and do one more. I think that'll be enough after that, because I can feel this one going to my head already. Catch you guys in just a second. Slange it. Alright guys, so as you often find in American breweries, they do have quite a number of beers in the fridge that you can take away. So yeah, up the top here, if we start on the top left, they have the Sundial, which is an IPA. Then over here you've got the Orion's Belt, which is a session New England IPA, 5.5%. You come down here, they've got the Spacecat Summer, which is a Kolsch at 5.5%. Then here they've got the Snosberry, which is a strawberry wheat beer. I'm not sure of the percentage of this one, I can't see it actually. But then yeah, you have the Cosmic Candy from their Kettle Sour series, which is an orange peach mango fruited goza, 5.2% ABV, and they've got the pineapple guava version of that over here. That must be a series of beers that they do. Then down here they've got the Tree Cat, which is a West Coast IPA at 7.3% ABV. Then here they've got the blue one, which I am not sure of the name. I think this one is called something Orion. It is the yeah, it's just called Orion actually. So this one is a New England IPA. Doesn't say what percentage it is either actually. But yeah, down here you have the Schwarzbier, which is a 5.6% dark lager. That is specifically a German dark lager, of course, because the Czech equivalent is the Tmavy. This is only the second time I've seen either a Schwarzbier or Tmavy in the US during this time. Here they've got the Hefeweizen at 5.3% ABV. Then over here they've got the Whistleville Pils, which comes in at 5% ABV. So a nice variety of different styles here actually. We're still not seeing too many big, dark or brown sugary heavy things actually, but yeah, that's a fairly nice selection here. So these are the beers that are here in the fridge at Spacecat Brewing today. Alright guys, so yeah, if you come to the bathroom while you're here at Spacecat, you'll actually walk past the whole brewing operation. So you can see over here they've got a bunch of different fermentation tanks. They've got their canning line just sitting there. But yeah, the brewing system is just over there. So you can see on the top there is the malt mill, if we can call it that. And they've got a nice little 3-vessel system here. And as I say, all the owners and stuff sit up there and do their work. So it's quite a nice little space here actually. I'm not sure what their fermentation and brewing capacity is, but still you get an idea of the scale of the operation here. So yeah, have a little look if you find yourself here. So yeah. Alright guys, well it's time for our fourth and final beer tasting then here at Spacecat. So Josh decided he wanted to join me for this one, and yeah, so the beer we're going to have a little look at in this review is a style that I very much enjoy, but one that Josh isn't really familiar with that much. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah. So you don't see too many of these actually. I think during this little spree of filming American breweries that I've done just now, I've only seen one comparable beer when I think about it. So this particular beer is simply called Schwarzbier. It comes in at 5.6% ABV, and as the name suggests, it is a German Schwarzbier, which is basically a black lager. The Czech equivalent of this style would be the Tmavy, and again for me the main difference between a Czech Tmavy and a German Schwarzbier would be that the German one is a little bit more kind of dry and roasty and toasty, whereas the Czech one has a little bit more smoothness and a wee bit more brown sugar and yeastiness in the flavour. But yeah, it is basically a black lager. These beers can sometimes be confused with the German Dunkels or the Czech Chernies. Yeah, you just need to remember to colour your beers when it comes to lagers. But I love a good Schwarzbier, and I'm curious to see what Josh thinks of one of his first Schwarzbiers actually. But yeah, as you'd expect from this style, it's poured a lovely kind of dark ebony rosewood kind of colour. When it came out, it did have about a half finger of a frothy, I would have said, kind of fawn colour. Yeah, fawnish colour. That's faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer, bit of a ring around the edge of the glass there. It's probably fair to describe this as being the same colour as like Pepsi Max or Cola
I would
Zero
go with that, or
something.
like iced coffee. Yeah,
I don't really drink coffee, so I don't know. I'm one of these psychopaths who does not drink coffee. But yeah, not much in the way of visible carbonation, I don't think. You can actually see with this beer, if you wipe away the condensation, it's actually pretty clear. So again, that would be another sign that this is a German Schwarzbier rather than the Czech Tmavy, because the Czech Tmavies tend to be a little bit hazy. The German Schwarzbiers tend to be just that little bit cleaner, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think we can have a look at the notes then. Let's see. What's your first impression then? The very first time you're looking at Schwarzbier?
I want to say like when you're like, I want to say like trying any beer, I want to say like this dark, the first thing you're getting is like, I want to say you're getting your dark chocolate, you're getting your cherries, you want to also like get it like, I want to say it almost smells like roasted, like almost like you want to get a little coffee flavor going with it. I mean, this is something that if you're really realistically looking for like a whole lot of flavor, I mean, just putting your nose inside of this beer, you're going to really be able to like, I mean, you're almost smelling it and tasting it at the exact same time. So that's what I'm going with so far. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's quite a roasty, toasty, like well-fired, almost slightly blackened bread crust. There's a bit of like rye bread in there. You do get this slightly caramelized kind of rye bready sweetness.
Kind of smells like the bread I gave you last night for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, so see if you take the aroma into this one really deeply. See if you just take like you'll see what I mean with the rye bread, I think. You see how it's got that bit of brown sugary kind of character to it. Because the thing to remember about a Schwarzbier is that the aroma profile is quite akin to a stout or a porter, but this is a lager rather than an ale.
I mean, it's more like a creme brulee that I'm thinking about, or if you ever like, you know, brown sugar like within a pan, it's kind of like that flavor that you realistically get.
Yeah. The other thing I should point out as well is that there's a lovely food truck just literally.
I know, I'm totally smelling like catfish or something right now.
Yeah, I'm smelling. I think they were doing quesadillas and stuff, and I'm smelling.
Delicious.
It's making me hungry.
We're not hungry.
Oh yeah, we're not hungry. We're not hungry. So yeah, you have this roasty bread crust, a sweet rye bread. There are obviously little hints of like wood and nut in there. There's a fair wee bit of brown sugar as well.
Delicious. I wish that food truck wasn't there because it's mixing right now.
I think we chose the wrong spot to kind of.
God, I'm only like smelling like fucking fish right now.
Oh yeah, I hate fish, so that doesn't do it for me. For me, it's the fries and the pizza that I smell. Oh,
Jesus Christ, I can't smell shit right now.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely a little touch of a leathery brown sugar, and when you get these kind of leathery aromas and flavours, that's usually an indicator of the length of your wort boil. So yeah, leathery brown sugars, bit of toasty brown sugar in there, oily caramel, but quite a dry brown sugar. I think that's fair to say.
Definitely, I'd say that for sure. It's definitely dry. I mean, I'm getting huge like, you know, caramel flavor. So I want to say like, you know, I don't know, any dish or something like that you would use with like, you know, like I want to say you craft a brown sugar. That's the smell that you get off like, you know, like the first instinct, like when you actually smell this beer.
Yeah.
So
Treacle molasses. Treacle is obviously what I would say. Molasses is probably what
honestly, I go molasses. You ever smell molasses? It's like honestly, it's the exact same color. As I mean, not quite the consistency, but it smells kind of like this. Honest to God.
I got a little friend in my beer. Yeah. So hoppy wise, then we'll taste this just so we're not dithering around too much. Hoppiness is kind of what you'd expect. Smooth earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. Not so much in the way of floral and grassy character in this one, which is what you'd expect with the Schwarzbier. The Schwarzbier is a more malt-focused style of lager. On the fruitiness, Josh was saying cherries earlier on. I can see that. It's got the sharpness.
It's always like chocolate-covered cherries. Like, that's what I'm really thinking. But it's like dark chocolate, you know, like almost kind of got that bitterness of like organic chocolate. Like that's what I get. Yeah,
it's got a little bit of a. For me, it's got a wee bit of a raisiny, plummy sharpness, which could, cherry would make sense, and a wee bit of like a more oily black currant as well.
I mean, without a doubt, I mean that's a totally easy guess. I'm just thinking like black licorice for sure, black currant.
It's nice.
I really love it because I really feel like you totally can just smell the roasting of the actual, like, you know, herbs and everything else is delicious.
Yeah. I think we should taste this one and see what it's all about.
Oh, sure, let's go for it.
So this beer is simply called Schwarzbier. Again, we're filming this in September 2023. They might rename this beer something else later. 5.6% ABV. I will point out for this style, that is toward the heavy end of the spectrum, because these beers are normally like 4.5 to 5% in Germany. So it is a little bit heavier, but you know, that's what they do in America. Things, you know, go big or go home. Yeah. So Joshy's first Schwarzbier. There you go.
Dig it in.
So, what do you think?
Oh man, So, if you ever try this beer, just give yourself a few seconds, just kind of like roll it around like your palate. I mean, there's creaminess that ends with roasted, that ends with dark chocolate, that you taste some caramel afterwards, you taste some dark chocolate afterwards. It is an absolute explosion, like, on your palate. This is delicious. Absolutely.
I have to ask you, do you like porters? Have you had so much in the way of porters?
You know what? I'll be 100% honest. Like, I actually rarely have, I want to say, anything as dark as this.
Yeah, you're an IPA and a lager.
I'm an
light
IPA,
lager, yeah.
light lager guy,
yeah.
and this I could drink. I mean, I'm big on I want to introduce as many people as I possibly can to many different types of beer. And I feel like the balance of this beer that I'm drinking right now it's a good introduction for anybody that wants to kind of get an opportunity to taste what different type of realms of beers taste like. Yeah. It's smooth. It has this creaminess, like when you kind of roll it around your palate, it's foamy, and it's foamy that kind of has a creaminess towards the end, and it goes caramel. I want to say it's dark cherries, and it is honestly tastes like sugar towards the end, brown sugar or molasses. Yeah. So if any of you deep south fans that deal with a whole lot of molasses, you're going to love this a lot.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear this, because I think if what you're saying to me, for when I come at this beer from a bit more, having tried quite a few examples of this, again, this strikes me as being, from what you're saying, I think you'd enjoy the Czech Tmavy even more than the German Schwarzbier, because it's the flavours that you're mentioning. It's even the Czech Tmavy version is a bit more amped up in that sense. It's even creamier and even yeastier and stuff like this. For me, this is quite a clean example of the style, which is what makes it the Schwarzbier. And I would say my experience of Spacecat is it seems to be the maltier the beers, the better, because it just suits the water profile that little bit more.
Oh, definitely. You can smell it walking in. Like, you can definitely smell it walking in. Divoja.
So, I mean, for me, as I say, this is a really nice example of a Schwarzbier, incidentally. It is very true and authentic to the German style. Maybe not quite as dry, a little bit slicker and smoother,
dry, yeah.
But still, it's a lot more German than it is Czech. We can say that. Middle third of the palate, the backbone of the beer is that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. If you go a little bit further forward with that, you get a wee bit of woodiness, a little touch of nuttiness into the aftertaste, and just jump in wherever you want. Rye bready character. It's quite a dry rye bready character.
I'd say so.
And potentially that's because it's a lager rather than ale, so it is that little bit lighter. So you've got rye bread, you've got a slightly sweeter pumpernickel brown bread above that. Then you get a kind of layer of like toasty brown sugar, and then you've got a circle in the middle of your palate which is a more leathery brown sugar, and in the dead centre of your tongue there's a bit of this really oily, like sweet caramel sort of thing coming out of the beer. For me, that is the middle third of your palate. Anything else you would add to that?
I'm going, when I think of this beer, like if you ever had roasted chestnuts, roasted almonds, if you ever had any, I want to say, like fruit nuts, like roasted, like this is really what I'm getting from this when I taste this beer. The first thing I think is one of those bags you buy from a grocery store that have the mixed nuts that are roasted, or whatever franchise is. I can't think what the Little Peanut Man franchise is called right now. If you get anything like that, this is kind of what I'm gearing towards when I think of this beer. I'm just thinking of pretty much like Christmas, roasted chestnuts, and anything else that you think of roasted. This is what I get at the first taste of this actually beer. So it kind of feels very homey. It's going to basically, the first sip of this beer is going to basically bring you back to some memory you haven't thought of in decades, and make you feel like you have a connection with this beer. This is probably why most people buy it extremely often. Yeah,
I mean, it's this is one of the things that surprised me a little bit in Connecticut, is how popular the lager beers are. And something like this or the Dunkel or the Doppelbock would be considered more of a kind of winter lager over here. But you know, when I even think about it, that Josh's wife, Laura, her family is German. If you go back, so it's in a way, there's a lot of German immigration here. So it's not surprising that the lagers are so popular. But yeah, this is nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like, I want to say it's a fluctuation. I mean, the closer you get towards the holidays, I mean, hell, if you're ever in New England, all of our beers are dark. Leading into the holiday, like, the most popular beers in Connecticut are dark beers. That's what everybody's kind of gearing towards, and towards the summer, then that's when you look at your summer ales, your lighter beers, and everything else. But towards, like, you know, autumn or fall, if you're in the U.S., moving into, like, you know, Winterfest, because that's also a thing here. Don't know if that's a thing anywhere else. And Christmas, every beer is dark and it's full of so much flavor, and that's what you really kind of gear towards. I mean, nobody wants this light beer in the middle of the winter. You want something full of flavor sitting next to a fireplace with your chestnuts.
You maybe have noticed that when I've been filming these videos, that it's more IPAs and light lagers, whereas if you go to the winter, and this is the thing in New England, you're going to get more extremes of temperature. You get a longer summer and a better summer, in fairness, but you're also going to get a lot harsher winter. And so you'll get Doppelbocks, you'll get Scotch ales, you'll get the barley wines, the big imperial stouts. I might need to get you to sort me out with a box of Connecticut big beers, because I've not really seen so many imperial stouts and stuff to try this time.
We can definitely get that. We have those Russian imperial stouts that are absolutely delicious.
I think we need to sort that out, but we'll do that another time. But yeah, the back third of the palate anyway. The back third of your palate in this beer is quite similar. The bread crust is a bit toastier. You've got a bit of an almost crackery layer in there. The rye bready layer is a bit lighter and more airy. The wholemeal brown bready layer, pumpernickel, whatever you want to call it, is in there. You can feel a bit of the toastier brown sugar creeping on top. You've got a yeasty note above that, which is again quite a sweet brown bready character. A more oily, leathery caramel wrapped around it. And definitely the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. As you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it squashes together a wee bit more. So yeah, hoppy side of things then, on the edges of your palate, the earthiness is a little bit more prominent, which you would expect from the style because of the presence of the black malt. There's probably some German crystal in here, and you see how you get that more crispness to the bread. And we had the West Coast IPA earlier, where the bread was a bit more oily. That's your main difference between German crystal malt and American two-row. And I've said this in many reviews, American malt is just that bit sweeter, and I do think, generally speaking, the American palate is sweeter than the European palate. But yeah, anyway,
that might be true.
I think that is a fair assessment.
That is very true. We have a sweeter palate here.
Oh yeah, definitely. When you try old world styles taken to America, they just feel like they're on steroids. But yeah, good little bit of dry earthiness in there. You do have a bit of herbal character as you push further forward. There is a wee bit of floral spice there.
True.
Yeah, so potentially they're using one of the slightly higher alpha acid German hops, maybe Hercules or...
I'm still going. You ever had a milk dud before?
A milk dud? No.
Oh God, we gotta try milk dud. Honestly, if all of you Americans are watching this, you ever been to a movie and you went to the actual little shop to get your popcorn and everything before, milk duds is an absolute staple in the US.
Right.
And this tastes like a movie theater before the popcorn.
So we get that on the way home?
We should get some milk duds.
What was the thing I tried yesterday? The corn...
Oh, I had candy corn yesterday.
Candy corn, yeah.
Candy corn you love or hate?
I liked it.
He liked it.
Yeah, it reminded me of milk bottle sweets from back home. But yeah, floral spice, round the front curve of the tongue, a bit lighter and grassy. As I say, potentially a slightly higher alpha acid German hop in here, Pearl or Hercules, rather than the standard German Mittelfrüh. The smoothness of the earthiness and the herbal character in there makes me think German rather than Czech. Not quite as spicy. The fruity side of the beer then, front third of the palate, what do you think?
Fruity side of the beer. Where am I going with the fruity side of the beer? So I want to say, like, you ever had a banana Foster? So I want to say, like, I taste bananas. I taste cherries. What else? Those are the two biggest things that I think really stick out to me. It's almost like this kind of banana cherry kind of flavor towards the end of this that I truly enjoy.
Yeah.
It's almost, for me, it's like a roasted sundae. That's what I'll call it.
It's interesting for me that you say banana, because I can see why you say that. I fucking hate bananas, so I never eat bananas. But I can see why you say it.
They could be delicious.
Yeah.
You ever had banana pudding?
I just never liked... Bananas were weird for me. I just never liked them. But I can see exactly why Josh says that. It's... yeah, for me, I can see you have this kind of like... I did have a word in my head to describe it, but yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's this like almost like marzipan. That's
Okay.
it. Marzipan-y, sponge cakey sort of thing. And then yeah, as you move further forward from that, you've got the base of that front third of your palate, toasty bread crust, brown bread on top, then that oily bubble where the fruity esters come out of the beer. And yeah, for me, in the beginning, there's a little bit like it's more plum for me than cherry, but I can see why you say cherry. I don't eat cherries that much. Nobody in my family really likes cherries, so something I'm not familiar with so
It's
much.
like maybe like every 3 years, like my wife tells me I need to try one of these chocolate covered cherries, and I'm not even a big fan of chocolate covered cherries, but like the one time I have it, I'm like, oh, it's actually better than I thought. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
this is something that I kind of think of.
I can see exactly why you say that. So there's a bit of a sharper, like cherry, plum, maybe raisin sort of thing at the back. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of an almost figgy quality in the middle of the front third of your palate. Black currant, and maybe on the very tip of the tongue, a slightly sharper
I agree
blackberry.
with you like on the raisins, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel like it makes you like think of like elderly folks, but like yeah, it definitely tastes a little raisiny.
Yeah. But I think that's it. Is there anything else we need to say about the flavour of this one?
I don't think so. I think we've checked off everything on that.
Yeah. Mouthfeel wise, as I say, for me, this is top end of light bodied, maybe bottom end of full bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth. It has got a slight degree of oily slickness to it, but again, it gets drier the further into the aftertaste that you go.
I mean, James can agree with this. I mean, like what I'm thinking of right now, I feel like it tastes like a Milky Way. He ate like 4 of them since this morning.
Oh yeah, well I had one bar which was 2, so I probably could have gone through a second one very easily.
Very true.
Yeah, but that's fair. That is definitely a fair
I'm
assessment.
definitely going more Milky Way.
Yeah.
Delicious.
I can definitely see why that reference is there. Malty base, toasty underneath, smooth, almost like smooth and slightly savoury in the middle, dry sweetness on top, which is where I think the Milky Way reference looks best. IBU, 30 or 40 IBUs. Here you have to talk about perceived bitterness versus calculated bitterness, because some of it's coming from the malt base, some of it's coming from the hop. So that's a debatable point. Fruitiness, little touch of sharpness on the beginning, but mainly juicy in the end. Yeah. I think that covers everything about this beer. How was your first experience of a Schwarzbier or a black lager, if you generalise it then?
Honestly, it was very good. I mean, I was surprised. I want to say like how much I actually like it.
Because you like Dunkels, don't you? You have had like a Dunkel or a Cherny before, the more brown lager.
Yeah, I definitely have before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but very good. I mean, I would recommend it. I feel like it's really, you have to venture out when it comes to like your palate. You have to really try things that you really wouldn't go for, because you'll always be surprised at what you actually like. Even sours. I mean, there's some sours where I'm like, oh, I probably won't like that. Ends up being a huge fan of it. So
Yeah.
just go for it.
And I have to say, I think that statement that we made about this brewery, the maltier the better, stands, because we had a little taste of the Oktoberfest, and that was good.
It was actually very good.
The Oktoberfest was very good. We didn't do a tasting of that in this video, but they came and gave us a little sampler of the Oktoberfest, and that was good. So I think with this brewery, the more malty and caramelly you go, the better. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we can round off this review at that. So this was the Schwarzbier, 5.6% ABV. That's the end of our final tasting then here at Spacecat Brewing. We'll round off here and I'll give you my final thoughts in just a second. So catch you then. Thank you to Josh for joining for this one.
Guys.
We'll see you very soon. Slanger, Skull, cheers. So yeah guys, if you come up the bar from this end, you'll see they've got this little cat in a rocket, which I have to say I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, cat in a rocket, you can't go wrong. Alright guys, well that is the end of our time here at Spacecat Brewing Company. in Norwalk in Connecticut. So Josh and I had a nice couple of hours here. We got to try a good few different kinds of beer. I started off by trying the Pilsner, which I thought was really quite nice. It was a little bit more Helles-like in its character. Then we went on to the New England IPA, which was really good as well, but again it was quite wet in its mouthfeel. And that got me thinking that the the water profile at this brewery just made the beers feel that little bit wetter. Then we went on to the West Coast IPA, which I thought was really nice, a proper nostalgia hit there, and we finished off with a look at the Schwarzbier, which was really nice. Also Josh's first taste of a German Schwarzbier too, so that was a really interesting thing to film. But I got the impression from this brewery that it seems to be the maltier you go, the better the beer is, and yeah, that's my opinion in this brewery. We also got a little taste of their Oktoberfest beer, which wasn't filmed, and that was really nice too. So I would say if you come and try the Spacecat Brewing Company beers, it does seem to be that the maltier you go, the better the beers are. But in total, I think I paid for Josh's beers as well, but in total for all the beers that we had, I paid about $42 if I remember correctly, so that's about €40, £38 sterling. Maybe in the region of 420 Swedish krona or something like that, and of course I left a tip as well, but yeah, that's for your discretion when you actually come here. But a really nice experience here at Spacecat Brewing Company. As I say, the maltier you go with the beers, the better it seems to be. But yeah, enjoyed my time here, and I think Josh enjoyed his time too, so we'll leave it at that for this one. As always, thank you for watching my videos. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this brewery in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Spacecat Brewing Company as well, and we will return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But if you get the chance, come and visit these guys, very close to Josh's work, and I'm sure I'll come and visit here again at some stage in the future. But check out Spacecat Brewing Company, Norwalk in Connecticut. Sláinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next Out and About video. Ciao just now.